Hey everyone, this is Rob over here at BuneBape, and I hope you're having an amazing day. Today I'll be bringing you all another Outriders video. This time it's going to be on a build I haven't seen before, and it's because I'm using the Torrential Downpour set. So I'm going to be showing you what I like to call the Bomberman build, and you'll definitely know why in the video. If you're not so much a fan of all the weapon builds going around, then you might want to try this out. It is unfortunate in that it essentially requires the 3 set legendaries for Torrential Downpour, but if raining down bombs on your enemies like a human carpet bomb sounds like a good time, then this is going to be the video for you. But really quick, before we jump into the guide, if you enjoy the video or it helps you out at all, please make sure to leave a like. It actually helps out a ton. On top of that, if you want to see any more Outriders content like this, you can subscribe to get notified whenever I put out more content. And lastly, down in the comments, if you have any Technomancer builds that you've been using recently, whether it's endgame, leveling, anything like that, just anything that seems interesting, I'd be super interested to see it down in the comments, as I love trying out new builds, especially for Technomancer. I've been really enjoying the class so far. So now with all that out of the way, let's jump into the guide. So the first thing that I thought we should go over is going to be the gear as well as the mods. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that I have the Torrential Downpour 3-piece. This is extremely important, and I would say essentially necessary if you're doing anything that is relatively high in expeditions. If you're just using this to level or roll around and farm some CT10s or 8s or 9s, then I think it would be perfectly fine to not use it. So before we get too much further into the build, let me preface all this by saying that as with essentially all my builds, this is custom made for single player and solo gameplay. If you're in a team, then this is going to probably change drastically on what skills you take and stuff like that. In general though, you're going to be seeking the same stuff on all of the gear, so at least that'll carry over. So essentially for all of the gear, we're going to be focusing on getting as much anomaly power and cooldown reduction as possible. The cooldown reduction is going to be paramount in this build, and anomaly power is going to give us that little bit extra damage we need on all of our grenades. The only real problem we have with this build is going to be the elites and captains, so that's the main reason I got Captain Hunter on my helmet. I would highly recommend getting this if you possibly can, as it'll just increase your damage by 25% against all elites. What is an extremely nice part about the Torrential Downpour set, besides the set bonus, is going to be that a lot of it rolls with Scrapnel modifiers. Of course, if you don't have the set, then just run as many Scrapnel modifiers as you possibly can, increasing the amount you can throw, the radius, as well as the damage. A huge mod that actually comes on the chest piece is called Trap Cluster. This simply doubles the amount of grenades you get, making it go from 3 to 6 before it goes on cooldown. It's hugely important, so if anything, I'd recommend getting at least the chest for the set if possible. Obviously, you don't have a lot of choice when it comes to farming sets, but if you happen to get it, then that's going to be a world of a difference for the build. As far as the last 2 pieces of gear go, I just added as many pain launcher mods to them as possible. I made it so that it'll freeze enemies, have a shorter cooldown, and do additional damage. Of course, still making sure I have cooldown reduction on those pieces as well. So funny enough, the hardest part about the build wasn't really the armor, but rather the weapons. It was really hard to decide which mods to go with and which ended up being the best. At the end of the day, I ended up going with Strings of Gauss and Death Chains on my sniper rifle. That is going to be the main weapon I use for the build. Although I messed around a ton with a bunch of different weapon mods, I didn't find really any to be better than others, so I just decided to get a couple that would do the most amount of damage. I'm certain that there's going to be mods that are superior, especially for this build, but I either just didn't try them out or don't have them. So that's going to be about it for the gear. Like I said, it is highly recommended that you have the set if you're doing anything higher than essentially challenge tier 10. Below that, you could probably get away without it, but it just won't feel as good. So with that being said, let's move on to the skills as well as the skill tree. So as far as the skills we're using, it's going to be Scrapnel. That's going to be our main damage dealer, as well as the thing that we're going to be spamming the majority of the time. You can try out Tools of Destruction instead of the next ability, which is Pain Launcher. I tried it a couple times, but it honestly just didn't seem to be as effective, and I couldn't really get it to work. I could see it if you invested a little bit more into it as far as mods go. You could probably get it set up, especially some of the cooler mods that come with the other legendary set. As far as the third ability goes, we're rocking the Blighted Turret. Now I'll show you why in the skills. It's great because it ends up tanking a lot of the damage and it deals a lot of our vulnerability for us. Overall, for our abilities, you can see our cooldown reduction is putting in a ton of work for all of them. They're all relatively low, especially Pain Launcher with that 30% decrease mod we have on there. The Blighted Turret we're going to be able to spam all the time, and Scrapnel being our main damage dealer, we want that cooldown as low as possible. You might be able to get it a little lower with legendary gear, but unfortunately I wasn't able to invest that much into this set. And so moving on to the skill tree, there's two main things that we're going to focus on here, and it's very similar with the gear. So we're going to be focusing on getting as much anomaly power as well as cooldown reduction for our ordnance skills. So by doing that, we're going to make it so that we have the lowest possible cooldown for our ordnance skills so we can spam them as much as possible. On top of that, that's going to keep up a lot of the buffs we have here that are running essentially 24/7. The first notable that we're going to get is going to be Adrenalizing Antenna. This is going to work essentially the same exact way as it does for the Pestilence gun build, making it so that whenever we use Blighted Turret, it increases our anomaly power for you and your allies by 30% for 10 seconds. Like I said, this is going to be up 24/7 and is the reason we bring our Blighted Turret to begin with. The Blighted Turret is nice in that it tanks a lot of damage for us, but this is going to be the main reason. So after that, the next notable thing we're going to get is Armored Unit. This is also going to be up 24/7 and essentially makes it so anytime we have an ordnance skill activated, it increases our armor by 50% for 15 seconds. We're also going to be taking less damage from elites, more anomaly power, and of course the final in the tree, which is Tech Bond. This is going to make it so our ordnance skills, when activated, increase our anomaly power by an additional 50% for 10 seconds. Like I said, all of these buffs are actually going to be up 24/7, making it so this build has over 200,000 anomaly power at all times, as well as the combination of the 50% extra armor, as well as all of the skill leech that we have being around 30%. It makes this build actually surprisingly tanky. For the last handful of points we have here, I ended up taking Wipeout as well as Exposing Toxin for a little bit more execute damage and to apply vulnerability using our Blighted Turret. You could definitely change this up and go straight up from Wipeout to Cannonade, making it so that you do more weapon damage as well as the rest of your team. That's essentially it for as far as the build goes. I'm going to have the end of this T13 Boomtown rolling in the background as I kind of discuss a little bit more of the tips and tricks as well as my thoughts on the build overall. So at the end of the day, the playstyle is actually really fun and interesting, and I actually really liked it. It was a good change of pace from the weapon builds that I normally have been running, as well as every other Technomancer. It's pretty cool because you are really tanky and you do a lot of CC with your constant interrupts and freezes. I found the best strategy, honestly, was guerrilla tactics, just running up to or by enemies, rounding them all up, and dropping all 6 of my grenades. It actually is quite a bit of damage and is really devastating, especially for these smaller units. And as far as the bigger units go, it did take some time to kill some of them, but for the most part, it actually did a surprising amount of damage, even against captains. I found that a really effective strategy was throwing down the Blighted Turret for the bonus, dropping the Pain Launcher to freeze enemies in place, and then running up and spamming all 6 of my grenades if it's a more difficult enemy, and if it's just a couple of the normal enemies, usually 1 grenade and a sniper shot is enough to take them down. At the end of the day, I really want to try this out again whenever I get more mods for the Tool of Destruction, as I think the rocket launcher could actually make this build amazing, or if I could get the minigun up and running, that'd be great too. Both can provide some really good bonuses as well as damage, but I just simply didn't have the mods to make it work. As far as my overall thoughts for the build, while I thought it was really fun, it's unfortunate because this isn't going to be an endgame build or something you'll use in a group or anything like that. It just doesn't do enough damage. Like I said, it's a really fun playstyle, but unfortunately Technomancer's skills seem to be in an extremely dire situation. I don't know how it is for any of the other classes, but it seems like if you're not running a Blighted Rounds weapon build, then you're not running an endgame build. I really hope to see one day that these set bonuses get buffed, or maybe the skills themselves. Something needs to be reworked, and I know that they're having a large patch coming fairly soon, and I hope that some of these changes can be included in that. Overall, I am looking forward to changing up the playstyle from these weapon builds already. It is enjoyable, but this one flavor meta is kind of boring. And let me know down in the comments if you feel the same, or if you are still really enjoying the weapon builds. Not that I dislike them, but it would be nice to use Tool of Destruction or turret builds or something else that's just a little bit different than what we've already been playing with. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you try the build, and if you do, let me know how it works out for you down in the comments. And again, if you have any other interesting builds that you'd like for me to check out, I actually would really appreciate it. It'd be nice to get a little bit of different stuff going on, especially since I've been running the weapon build all the way since back in the demo. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you all very soon.